Yeah.
Many people here. This is so amazing. Thank you so much for coming out. This is awesome. I love seeing all of your faces. I'm Junae, and I am super excited to welcome you to the third Constellation reading series event. I'm super sad to say that my dear friend and co-conspirator and co-organizer Jessica Johnson is not here because she has a new book out.
Yeah.
Not here, she would never let me do this if she was. It's called Metabolic by Jessica Johnson, and it's an amazing book of poetry, her second book. But she was up in Seattle having a really good time meeting lots of people and selling books. So she got COVID. Not serious, but it's very uncomfortable. And Jessica, I hope you're speaking. But if you're not here, tonight we are so happy to bring together these readers. Cristina Correa, there we go. Kira Brooke Smith and Michelle Ruiz, and we're happy to bring all of you together, you this audience in this room, and those of you who are joining us on the live stream. As we gather in this space, I want to remind us that we're gathered on the unceded traditional homelands of the Multnomah, Clackamas, Tumwater, the Wallala, Cascade bands of the Chinook, as well as the Tualatin Kalapuya, and many other recognized and unrecognized Native nations of the Columbia River. We say this not as empty words, but as an invitation and reminder to learn more about the specific and fucked up broken promises on the city and state which we rest, and to find ways to concretely, say it again, concretely, and materially, again, materially, to support Native sovereignty and return of Native land. We also say this with the intention of making good use of our time together in this space. Before we get started, I want to thank Lance Cleland. Of course, Lance, you are so amazing, and Tin House for their generosity in opening their space to us. Lance will talk at the end. There's a reading here on Friday that he'll give us a little update about. And tonight, we'd also like to thank PCC Portland Community College's Carolyn Moore Writer's House residency. Woo! Yeah. Which offers emerging writers concentrated time to focus on their work while also providing students the opportunity to interact with talented writers from across the country. And we have our first two readers here who are residents there right now. And then thanks to everyone for honoring our COVID policy and keeping each other safe. That one's for you too, Jessica, if you're watching. And we hope you have a really wonderful night here tonight. We also hope you come back and bring your friends. After the reading, please join us back upstairs. We have food and drink if we can, and community and hangout time till 9 p.m. And without further ado, let me introduce you to our first reader. Cristina Correa, pronouns are she, her. She is a writer in residence at the Carolyn Moore Writer's House. Cristina is a writer and educator from Chicago, where she served at-risk and marginalized communities for more than a decade. She is a recipient of fellowships and awards from the Kenyon Review, Canto Mundo, Hedgebrook Foundation, Whitting Foundation, May Fellowship, Hawthornden Literary Retreat, Palm Beach Poetry Fest. I'm going to keep going, this is awesome. Cornell University, among others. Her writing has been published, broadcasted, exhibited in venues including the American Academy, the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day series, Bethany Poet series, Missouri Review, Obsidian, Literature and Arts in the African Diaspora, NPR's Latino USA, and the Museum of Contemporary Art Detroit, which is where I grew up. Shout out to Detroit and elsewhere. Please help me welcome Cristina.
Can you hear me all right? Okay. I'm not going to demask, but I do have space on here and happy to see you. I'm happy to be here. Okay, just gonna take a breath. I haven't done this in a while, so I was feeling really calm when I there's a few poems, and I think I won't talk about them too much. But I will contextualize a little bit just to say that I think they're all speaking to each other, specifically about grief as it relates to losing people, right? Like losing an idea of a person, but also losing an idea of a place and our connection to it when it starts to change or when it's violated. Sometimes by nature and sometimes by truly unnatural forces. So yeah, that's kind of abstract, but I think that's probably the best way to open this up. And I'll start with a couple pieces that they just got published in this journal called About Place. And if any of you are writing, thank you. I wasn't trying to show off. I wanted to encourage you to submit to the journal. If any of you are writing any sort of like eco-critical work, they're a beautiful journal, and they are edited by the Black Institute Fellowship. So if you've heard of any of that, or you want to hear about any of that, look them up. They're just gorgeous people. So, okay, the element. Was anger the original spike in defense of the blooming cacti learning to hold its water? Or was it born a red ripple in seawall of muscle that didn't stop raging? When it took its first shaken breath, was it siphoned through a raw smile and too many teeth? Crude pump of the bitter well, foul, absent. Was it a feebly erected structure burning into the heat of its flaming bones? Listen for the rib of the mountain's ancient scream. Why is anything born like this? Heaving for more air, wild awake through inherited lead lungs, powering a relentless motor. Thank you. This piece is kind of explained in its title, but I will give a little background actually on this one. It's called A Vessel Carrying 300,000 Barrels of Fuel to Guayanilla, Puerto Rico is stalled. And how many of you have heard of the Jones Act? Anybody? A few, okay, thanks. For anybody who hasn't, the Jones Act is essentially a way of keeping Puerto Rico a colony that says that nothing can arrive to the archipelago without the mainland's permission. So I'm sure a lot of you know that Puerto Rico is in a tough spot. It's been that way for a long time, but especially after Hurricane Maria, and more recently even the electric grid keeps breaking down. Anytime there's any kind of rumble in the earth, things get tough. So this poem responds to a period when the people were just waiting for fuel because they live on generators for the most part. The electric grid is really unreliable. So I think it's also speaking to what I was saying, that idea of grief, and also the idea of being stalled, and what it means when there are still people living and growing. What is waiting, what is stalled. Anyway, so a vessel carrying 300,000 barrels of fuel to Guayanilla, Puerto Rico is stalled. In the collapsed church, an organ swallows rudderless notes. Repressed whine of gravity's slow burning wire reminds return to murmuring birth. A tethered boat, learning tightropes of hopeful void. The harbor of harp and veins future vibrates through. Listen for a way, suspension, for bound music reimagines itself eternal. Plebiscite on truth. The water snake's tail longs for its own teeth. Little white flares to sink into its drawn out quart of oil. To taste the free beating star of an anonymous heart. Thank you. The same place. Museo de Arte de Puerto Rico. That is Impressionism. A tree at the foot of a washed hill holds itself through the strip season. Subtle procession of day bears the warm craving decline. The longer way home muscles the course, black artery. Its monochrome of dust layers the absolution of time. I imagine Oyer this way, adoring each brown refuge. A guayaba rolled brightly into its bruise. He guided brush and canvas as hours retouched spirit and oil on a palette. Portal for the mixed blessings of blood. The docent is in my eye, offering a reminder. He will still be in this surviving room after it all sinks in. Unintelligible as a tempest foaming itself into another white wall, I try to ask, what color remains of what is buried and grown over? Will night again bear the flourishing burden of awakening the landscape's silhouette? So, Guerrero Noble speaks. Quietly, repeats himself in the mirror like a prayer he has listened to his whole life. May he never have to experience something irrevocable as the cold. From the windy city, I flew to this canary contraption, guided by our dutiful son. Bags swollen with bags of batteries, maxi pads, deodorant, soap, water filters. He shivers like a lizard on the road just to imagine it. He has no doubt. El frío es cosa mala. Ocean ripped roots swept onto sidewalks. Streetlights debt still not repaid. Vibrating speakers in narrowly turning cars waning. We wait for our green. He lifts his stony finger from the wheel. Hasta Jesús Cristo lo sintió. El hambre, sed, y el frío. His cataract, a thin layer of fresh rain in the rear view. I scan the pavement for significant holes or debris, but I don't know what I'm looking for. He turns to me and palms my cold bills. En 2 semanas se calientan los huesitos. He turns to the mirror and winks, pleased with what he knows. Sir. Thank you, Cristina.
I'm not a poet, so I'm always just amazed what poets can do with language. To have the skill to be able to take something like grief and give it such imagery and make it beautiful. It's so impressive. Next, I'm excited to introduce Kira Brooke Smith. Kira's pronouns are she, they. Kira is also a writer in residence at the Carolyn Moore Writers House. Kira is woo! Kira is a nonfiction writer from here, Portland, Oregon. She is a co-conspirator at Budding Roses Summer Camp and a proprietor of Porch Couch, the undisputed, this is so cool, undisputed oldest punk house in Portland. Her writing is inspired by the persistent optimism of youth, autonomous organizing, and her encounters with the biophysical world. Her work has appeared in Oregon Humanities, Kajibi, The Pointed Circle, The Atticus Review, The Guardian Online, and more. She is an alumnus of Signal Fire Arts, the Soaring Gardens residency, and has received support from the Regional Arts and Culture. Please welcome Kira.
So excited I get to be Christina's neighbor until like 3 weeks. I want to say thank you so much for everyone who showed up tonight, and thank you so much, Keill, for hosting. And especially thank you to Justin for all the wonderful work and support he's giving to this reading and the Carolyn Moore's Writers House presidency as well. I'm not gonna do, do want to mention what it's preparing for this. I want to do a quick plug for, we have a director in house, my friend Prabhu, has created a film that is about the experiences of folks being released from prison, and the film also like the cast of folks who've been formerly incarcerated, and it is at the Hollywood Theater on March 26th at 2:00 p.m. That's a Sunday. All the proceeds go to Open Hearts, Open Minds, and they provide arts programming. Strongly encourage it. And you go over here somewhere, if you have any questions, in the back over there. It's a beautiful film. I guess I'm gonna read an excerpt from an essay that's coming out, 5 points in the summer issue. I guess I think the only thing I have to say about it is that I changed the names of the corporations now, which would be a bonus for them. They saw how much money I make and the highlight. Okay. Oh, and thanks for the shout out to the folks online. Hi, Robin and Ruiz. Okay. The great redeeming feature of poverty, the fact that it annihilates the future. George Orwell wrote this observation early in his memoir book, Down and Out in Paris and London, in which he describes his experience with poverty. First, while working 95 hours a week as a restaurant busboy in Paris, and then tramping through London's overnight wards, subsisting on bread, margarine, and insufferable charity. He adds that there are limitations to poverty's ability to eliminate our worries. But I have come to agree with his general assessment. If you spend enough time below the poverty line, you get used to living meal to meal, check to check. And after a day of running around to government aid offices, dead-end job interviews, food pantries, etc., you're left without energy to think beyond the present. And even if you did have the energy, worrying is pointless because you don't have any clout with the future. You develop a mindful habit of letting go. Institutions that serve the poor are particularly apt at rendering you inert. They relieve you of your agency regularly and in ways you might have found a meeting under less desperate circumstances. For example, East Portland outside of 82nd Avenue is rife with such institutions, and they become denser the farther you get from city center until the street is lined with militarized grocery stores, payday loans, and a sprinkling of underfunded public agencies. But unlike nearby institutions, biotech's office is made from a prudent tan brick. Its name illuminated on the building's frontage in a no-nonsense shade of blue. It lacks the dreariness of an aid agency and the private security guard and barred windows of a commercial building. Only other poor people would know what it is, otherwise you might mistake it for a medical facility of repute. In contrast, the lobby where I waited for my first plasma donation appointment was more familiar. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a morose yellow glow onto an otherwise gray landscape of flecked linoleum and two-tone walls. The room was full of qualified bodies who had come hoping to trade platelets for money. Occasionally, a worker in scrubs stuck their head out of the back door to call a donor into the next room. I had arrived on time for my appointment, but after 30 minutes, it was apparent biotech was behind schedule. No one else in the lobby looked surprised by the wait, though. They'd come prepared with smartphones and tablets. I had a phone, but it didn't do web pages or applications, barely made phone calls. For moments like these, I thrifted a trench coat with pockets big enough to carry paperbacks. I reached into one and pulled out Down and Out in Paris and London, finding the dog-eared page with my fingertips. I discovered Orwell's nonfiction works and lesser-known novels that year from an older boyfriend who liked to tote me into leftist circles and then abandon me by the chip bowl. The boyfriend didn't last, but Orwell stuck around. I shot down his books one after another, escaping the hunger and fascism of 2017 urban America by stepping into the hunger and fascism of 1930. I was inspired to learn that at the age of 25, he resigned his job as a colonial police officer in Burma to pursue writing and anti-fascist politics in London. And then he paid the bills with odd jobs, not books and essays. Orwell helped me cope with poverty by romanticizing it. I was not another small town orator whose artistic aspirations had been crowded out by survival in the city. I was an artist of the people. In the month before I signed up to donate plasma, I was working a temp job from Speedy's employment professionals at the city dump. Most of the other temp workers spent the shift sorting trash in the bays, where trucks dumped asbestos, human excrement, busted furniture, and anything else unimaginable into rank pits. But the dumps manager had been impressed by my irrelevant education and gave me the job of directing traffic at the entrance. The girl's job, that was sometimes called by others workers, many of whom were on parole or had recently immigrated to the States. And this would have offended me if I wasn't so grateful to stand a little farther from the reeking bay. Directing traffic is also one of the safer jobs at the dump, where I witnessed other workers suffer injuries from machinery and exposure to hazardous materials. I'm ashamed to say that I clung to my privilege in this instance, not unlike Orwell had when poorhouse deputies called him a gentleman and assigned him coveted kitchen duties with access to better food. Unfortunately, it turned out that I am allergic to the cottonwood seed that drifted across the dump's driveway in early spring. After a month of steady work, my lymph nodes bulged out of my neck like gills. I had to blend my lunch into a smoothie every day and drink it through a straw because painful sores had broken out in my mouth and throat. Then during an unseasonably warm week, I went home fever stroke. For 2 days, I shivered while sweating through pajamas and sheets. The upside of my illness was the break it offered from constant work. I finally had time to consider how much and for how long I had mindlessly suffered for $13 an hour, which had seemed like good pay when I started. When the fever broke, I didn't have any nerve left with which to subject myself and quit. After leaving the dump, my mouth healed and my lymph nodes subsided, but I still needed to pay rent for the house I shared with a scrap collector and his moody Pomeranian, and so I signed up to donate plasma. Poverty is complicated and mean-spirited like that. And it's not so much that standing in trash is more dignified than selling body parts. What is work but selling your body anyway? The problem is that I don't like thinking about blood. It makes me aware of my shins and how close to the surface my veins run. Gory movies draw attention to the fact that my hands are feeble twigs. But when I saw a billboard advertising double the financial gift for first-time plasma donors, $150, I disregarded, or maybe forgot, that I swooned at the sight of blood and made an immediate appointment. Yeah, I'm sorry. All the way over here. I finished 50 pages of Down and Out in Paris and London before I was called for my pre-donation physical. 2 hours had passed since I first sat down in the waiting room, and in that time, I visited the receptionist counter twice to confirm my appointment. Once, I had been directed to check myself in at a computer kiosk, and the second time, I was told there's nothing we can do by the loan administrator. I'd watched others give up and leave before their appointment, maybe because they couldn't stand any more of the lobby's ACGC and impatient toe tapping. At a certain point, I too contemplated going home, but I couldn't think of anything worth leaving for. Poverty is boring because you don't have any real choices. It had been several hours since I'd eaten, but it was unrealistic to give up my shot at paying rent to go home for another tedious peanut butter and jelly sandwich. According to Biotech's website, donors are strongly encouraged to eat a substantial meal and hydrate an hour before donating. To avoid complications, I decided to lie in case anyone asked if I had eaten, but luckily the computer kiosk was indifferent. Eventually, a technician led me through the back hallway into a low budget exam room. She directed me to another gray chair and asked me to wait some more. I finished 5 pages on Orwell's Parisian Adventure from the kitchen flop at Hotel X before a man entered the room wearing scrubs and holding a clipboard. "How's it going on Max?" he said. "We're going to run a series of tests today to make sure you're healthy enough to donate." Dr. Max was friendly and boisterous like a frat boy, but his eyes were ringed with deep purple depressions. Lines ran from eye to ear whenever he smiled. I wondered how a doctor ended up here working the evening shift at a plasma donation facility, and I was betting that Dr. Max often wondered the same. He asked me to step on an analog scale in the corner of his room, tapping the weights with the end of his pen while I held my breath, waiting for the needle to settle. The minimum weight to donate plasma is 110 pounds. With a pair of leather Doc Martens and a novel in my pocket, I weighed almost 112. Dr. Max looked at me on the scale for a moment. I imagine he saw my prominent cheekbone. The way my hips jutted in pants that had become so baggy, I rolled the top over to keep them from falling down. How many other skinny, hopeful people had stepped onto his scale? 112 pounds, he said matter-of-factly, but muttered, soaking wet under his breath as he marked my chart. We went through a series of proddings and pokings, STD tests, blood pressure, detailed sexual history, which mostly meant asking if I'm a gay man or have been having sex with gay men. It was obvious that the purpose of this exam was not to assess my health, but quality control. In the 1920s, South doctors inspected every houseless man's body, but ignored signs of malnutrition and injuries because they were only looking for communicable diseases that could climb to higher social tiers. Likewise, plasma donors are subjected to disease testing, but not a comprehensive physical in exchange for their platelets. In addition to the obvious homophobic stigma of HIV and AIDS in gay men, donors are not allowed to get new tattoos or piercings that become sources of infection for immunocompromised plasma recipients. And this is not to say that donors shouldn't be tested, but no one thought to ask whether I had clean or access to regular health care. Instead, Dr. Max asked me to lift my body art by labeling a generic human form on a piece of printer paper. Then he looked over my drawing and he appeared confused. "So it's just the one piercing on the left side of your girl part?" he asked. For a moment, I thought I'd made a mistake. I reviewed my drawing, but it looked right to me. Turned back to Dr. Max for clarification, but his eyes were on the floor. I realized he was embarrassed by the topic of my body, and that by girl parts he meant my nipples. One of the redeeming qualities of poverty, according to Orwell, is that surviving it requires us to let go of certain pretenses. My need for rent had liberated me from the dignity of discursive feminism, which seemed insignificant when compared to my material needs. Food, rent, and freeing myself from biotech. It's easy to treat poor bodies as vectors for capital and social order when they're too tired and hungry to oppose you. Yeah, just the one, I said, relieved to move on. After scraping by the physical exam, the nurse brought me through a hallway-like room with the usual signifiers of transition. Body television, a row of chairs against a wall with bored-looking people in them. She handed me a blue folder containing my chart. They'll come get you when it's your turn, she said, leaving me to wait for a third time. I turned towards the chairs and saw that I now faced only a short line of people, maybe 4, waiting ahead of me. I was struck with a sudden and belated anxiety about the imminent procedure, which until this point had represented only a means of getting money. But the people ahead of me seemed calm, or at least jaded, and I took this to mean that they were regulars with some idea what came next. If they weren't anxious, maybe I shouldn't be either. I sat down at the end of the row and smiled at the gruff, flanneled man next to me. A 90s sitcom I hadn't seen since I was a kid was on TV. Can't believe they're still showing this. His voice surprised me. He spoke as if we were sitting at a bar during happy hour instead of waiting in line for phlebotomy. Yeah, I replied, wishing I had something more substantial to say because conversation was a welcome distraction from hunger and dread. First time, he asked. I nodded, embarrassed that it was so obvious. You're right, he shrugged, get used to it after a bit. To his left sat a woman wearing an emerald headscarf. When she heard us talking, she leaned forward and said, I'll be over quickly if you know how to distract yourself. This didn't comfort me much, but I appreciated it all the same. She didn't pretend that it would be painful or had any soft sentiments about altruism. What she offered was practical advice. Thanks, I said. We continued to talk casually about both their kids, the weather, what they did or had done for work in the past. I sensed that these were my people, in fact, they would probably be Orwell's people too, if he had lived another 100 years. Down and Out in Paris and London is, at its core, a book about people, their universal needs and merits. When people are suffering in poverty from hunger, boredom, pain, and cold and other degradations, it is not the infighting or crust swiping that surprises me. It's that they still manage to share their humanity under these conditions. They offer a handful of cigarette ends and bread crusts, the lock codes for grocery store bathrooms, pictures of their kids to distract in the plasma donation market. People with almost nothing still muster camaraderie. Of the many things that haven't changed since Orwell's writing, I think this is the most important. We waited together, disappearing one by one, as the nurses came to fetch us and walk us to our stations around the corner. I said bye, first to the emerald woman who gave a wave, then to the flannel man. I couldn't see into the procedure room from my place along the wall and felt an emptiness where we usually keep our expectations of the future. I hadn't thought to ask them about the process, but then again, it didn't really matter. I had already sunk so much time into donating. The thought of going home empty-handed to work on job applications for employers who rarely responded to them. Lack of food and choice filled my anxiety. I pulled out my book to read again. Almost relaxed. I think I'm gonna leave that. Next one, so the regional government who runs the city dump and exploits it. And they're elected.
Thank you so much for that. It was cool that it was set here in Portland, here, that was a place that we exist in. I am honored to introduce Michelle Ruiz Keill. Michelle's pronouns are she, her. She is the author of All of Us with Wings and Summer in the City of Roses, a finalist for the Ursula K. Le Guin Fiction Prize. Her recent short stories can be found in the Buckman Journal and Dispatches from Anaris, tales in tribute to Ursula K. Le Guin. She is a Tin House Scholar, and her work has been supported by the Regional Arts and Culture Council, Brooke, the Sitka Center for Art and Ecology, and more. She sits on the board of Shaking the Tree Theater, and her play, The Serpent School for Wayward Girls, was featured in Forbidden Fruit. Michelle has lived in Portland for many years, where she curates the fairy tale reading series, All Kinds of Fur, and lives with her family in a cottage where the forest meets the city. So Michelle, thank you.
So amazing to see all the pieces. Thank you so much for taking time and coming and writing tonight. It's been so beautiful to listen to both of you and really great to come out of my bubble. I've been deep in a new book, and I'm going to read a little bit of that for you tonight. Oh, and just to say that Shaking the Tree Theater production of Forbidden Fruit is still happening through the first weekend of April. And I mean, I just wrote a small part of, there are 8 rooms. The play explores kind of forbidden curiosity, especially for women at different phases of their lives. And it is a ride. I had no idea what to expect from the other rooms, and I'm still thinking about all the other works besides the one that I really enjoyed doing. My room is the apple of Pico. Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to read to you is from a work in progress called The Year of Ghosts and the Body. And it is literary fiction, historical literary fiction set in the 1930s. Have any of you ever heard of Crockett, California, by any chance? Yeah, right? Okay. Oh, wait, someone say yeah? Okay, wow. Okay, Crockett. Nobody knows Crockett hardly at all. Crockett is a very tiny town, probably about 20 minutes from Oakland, that really exists only because the C&H sugar refinery exists there. And so my great grandparents settled there with their family. My great grandmother came from Mexico. My great grandmother from Redlands, from a Southern California Mexican family that had been there for a long time, and they sort of brought the family north to the Bay Area. And I heard so many stories growing up about this sort of almost fairy tale-like town of Crockett. And you know, it is the town that time forgot. There's not a single chain business in Crockett even now, which is really weird. I've recently gone back for research. Anyway, so the town of Crockett and the sort of stories that my nana told me about growing up there, and then the very sad story about her first marriage, where her first husband died very young, has inspired this book. So I'm going to read to you a chapter from it called The Black Cat, set in October 1935. Get dressed, Max says, something sexy. Forget no wives. Tonight is Max and me. Him, a dark god in a white shirt. I'd ironed myself like my hands were on his body. Me in my red dress, red lips, peony from the landlady's garden in my hair. We head out, making our way down the Greenwich stairs, hand in hand. On either side, the trash and debris from the first generation of Irish and Italian hill shacks is transforming into jungle garden. An artist's wife and her mother can be seen most mornings, weeding and pruning. Even in the year we've lived here, the hill is changing. On Broadway, it's already jumping, never mind it's only 8 o'clock on a Thursday. I love the Jekyll and Hyde that happens just a few blocks down the hill from our cottage, where the neighbors grow grapes and make their own wine, and someone's goat can still wander into your garden. Here, it's the Barbary Coast, all right. It used to be pirates on shore leave, and now, who knows? Probably a few pirates left, added to the artists, sailors, and longshoremen, jazz musicians, chorus girls, and young couples like us, walking jacketless into one of those warm fall nights you only get in the city. A rare clear sky, reminding you that the moon and stars are still there. Past Broadway on Columbus, we stop at a joint with a neon sign of a slightly myth-looking feline, the Black Cat Cafe. A small din is audible even from outside. More bar than cafe. That last probably a leftover from Prohibition. Max stops me before we go in. holds my face, kisses me like he hasn't seen me for a month, right there on the street. That's another thing I love about being in this city. No matter how you carry on, no one blinks an eye. Inside, the black cat is jammed. Is this where they go without me? Right off, there's a feeling of danger here. Not like the redneck roadhouses across the bay in Crockett with their no dogs, Negroes, and Mexican signs. Here, the danger is loose. Like if you pull, something might unravel. The piano trills out a song of love, Moonlight Serenade. Max leads me to the dance floor, and we're pressed close as a handsome black man in evening clothes plays it slow, crooning like he's got a throat full of honey. My head sits right on Max's shoulder. We bump gently into other couples and are bumped gently back. I open my eyes to take it in. Bright dresses and shiny shoes, lipstick, cufflinks. To my right is a gorgeous woman. I mean stacked, showgirl legs and hair like Veronica Lake. She's pressed, eyes closed, against her own white shirted shoulder. They turn a little, and I see her partner. Slicked back hair, pillow lips, nice fitting jacket and trousers. Men's clothes, but not a man. My stomach drops to my knees. You can tell by the firm press of her hand on the dip of Veronica's back that she is used to the man's part. I blink, but the couple is still there, dancing like it's just a normal night in a normal North Beach bar. It's not like I hadn't heard of people like this. Men called light and loafers, girls whose friendships were a little too close. But outside of the Shakespeare plays I read in high school, I'd never imagined young, pretty, normal-looking girls who went out to nightclubs dressed as boys. I closed my eyes and leaned into my husband. For him, I knew very little about marital bliss beyond mechanics. Now, suddenly, I see exactly what two women could get up to together. Not everything requires male equipment. I open my eyes to see the woman in trousers whisper into her partner's ear. I need to admit, I'm blushing. Me, the big sister of 5 wild girls and oldest cousin to 16 heathen boys. Max pushes me out, reels me in. Does he notice me notice? Veronica sees. She holds my gaze, looking at those baby blues. I'm not thinking about what it's like to be her. I'm imagining myself in slacks, benders, haircut short, a heavy watch on my wrist, my hand just shy of her heart-shaped behind. And somehow, this woman knows it. I need a drink, I say in Max's ear, taking his hand to pull him away from the dance floor. It's dark enough that he might not see how hot my cheeks are. He parks me at a little table and comes back with a whiskey for him, a martini, 2 olives for me. What do you think? He says in his professor voice. It drives me crazy sometimes, that detached way of talking. I used to be nothing but flattered. He really wanted my opinion, really valued my smarts. Now, sometimes, I think it's a way for him to set us apart. Him, the world-traveled bohemian, me, the small-town hag. What do I think about what? I know what he means, but for some reason, I want him to say it. He's quiet. I sip my gin and look around. Now that I know to look, I see strangeness everywhere. Skirts and trousers filled with all sorts of bodies. Boy, girl, man, woman, a few in between or some combination of both, like the beauty at the bar wearing a silky gold toga over some pants and gold bracelets to the elbow. I realize now the crooner on stage is a mystery too. A deep voiced woman who wears a tuxedo like she was born to it. That's what blues. The very first principle of the everyday world, boy or girl, is nothing in here. Nothing in something else. I turn back to Max. I can't decode his expression. I don't think he wants me to. He's still waiting for me to answer, but I just can't. Some people need time to form an opinion. Max, I think, came out of the womb already equipped. So I ask a question instead. I have plenty of. Do you come here a lot? Max's eyes cloud with something intense, anger. Is that fear I see in my husband's eyes? I take a swig of my martini. Technical. I take a swig of my martini and look into the crowd. Tables crowded with friends, a high din of drink and laughter. A man in a silk suit and red lipstick walks through the door. He sees Max and his face lights up like Christmas. He makes a beeline for our table. Then he sees me. A pack of new arrivals, artists maybe, the girls and boys both wearing rolled up shirt sleeves and paint spattered dungarees, block his getaway, stranding him near our table. It's awkward the way he's careful not to see us. Friend of yours? I say. My voice is soft and calm. My heart is pounding against my chest, exposed in his low-cut dress. I search his face and find his eyes. I smile. He smiles back a little unsure. This man who usually knows it all. I rest my forehead on his for a quick second, then pluck a cigarette out of the pocket. Max, always quick with a lighter, sits frozen. The man in the silk suit has angled away from us the best he can. Honestly, if I stretched my leg out, I could probably touch the cuff of his trousers with my shoe. He's that close. I pretend I'm Alicia, my most outgoing sister. Hello there, I say. Do you have light? I do, he says. His hand is a little shaky when he lights my cigarette. I'm B, I say, sitting down next to my wide-eyed husband. He fast glances at Max, then turns on the charm. Enchanté, B. His smile is radiant. He takes my hand and kisses it, and I don't know if he's French or what, but already I like him. I'm Darius, he says, like the boy king of Persia, but you may call me Dare. Max, he says, leaning in to kiss my husband on each cheek. Darling, where have you been keeping her? Can you blame me, Max says. I mean, look at her. This man and my husband are acquainted then, just as I suspected. Before I had time to feel any sort of way about it, a fast song trills out of the piano and Darius holds out his hand. May I have the honor? I wonder for a second if he means Max or me, but then we're on the dance floor and this man is the best dancer. I mean the best I have ever had the pleasure of cutting a rug with. Now, I can dance. All the girls in my family can. Our mother's side is known for it. But this one, he's something else. I feel eyes on us. Sweat breaks out on his perfect olive skin. And maybe he is the Prince of Persia because our moves are positively regal. People have stopped dancing to look. The music flows. The piano player is in on it now. A tango. My mother and Aunt Chana grew up in Los Angeles babysitting for their Argentinian neighbor and got tango lessons in return. I point my foot, looking around Dare's calf, nose in the air. Who's the princess now? But he's on fire, pushing me out, pulling me scandalously close. When the music slows to its finale, Dare swoops me into a dip so low, my back folds in half. He pulls me up, and the tango spell is broken. Back at the table, waiting for a round Dare has insisted on buying, I take Max's cold hand in my warm one. This place is fun, I say. Thanks for bringing me. You're welcome, Max says. His eyes dart to the bar where Dare is still waiting for our drinks. I never answered your question, he says. If I'd come here often. He holds my gaze and I hold his, steady, waiting. He inhales like a swimmer who's been underwater a breath too long. He knows he married a patient woman. I did, he says. I used to. Come here often. And now? He knows I'm asking more than the two words hold. It feels like something fresh, precarious, and important. Max looks down, long lashes so thick I can't see his eyes. Now, I'm here with you, he said. I look around again. What seemed at first glance like any old North Beach bar and at second glance like some sort of bizarre masquerade is actually neither. It's not the clothes or what's inside them that's different here. It's the faces, this look they have, undone and a little wild. Once, when I was 13, my LA cousins convinced Eloise and I to sneak out and ride our bikes to the beach. We made a fire and danced around it, pretending to worship the moon. Even though it was a game, that night felt more real than anything we'd ever done. We started out cousins. That night at the beach made us friends. Max leans forward to light a cigarette. In the light of the flame, I see what he brought me here to see. His face in this place. My man, my moon. I love it here, I say, and I love you.
Very sweet, a little bit sexy. Thank you. Before we wrap up, Lance, do you want to come up and make a quick announcement?
I'm actually just gonna read some of my own work. Real quick, I'm Lance Quinn, I'm the executive director of Tin House. First of all, I just want to welcome you on stage here. It's a great partnership, and it's really happy to see so many new faces coming into the building. So I wanted to extend an offer to join us on Saturday night for a night celebrating the abundance of Black poetry. Jane Michelle, who works here at Tin House, is having her book launch. And in addition, Jay is going to be joined by, we have our own residency program. So just right next door, we have 2 residents. Jada Renee Allen and M. McPowell are also going to be reading. And so Jay is new to town, and obviously our residents aren't from here as well. So we're really hoping that we get a good turnout here. So if you are free, you'd like to join us, please feel free to come back. It's Saturday at 7. And we also do monthly readings here as well with our residents. So I know some of you are probably already on our mailing list, but if you'd like to get on the mailing list for the, you can just email Lance at Tin House and I'll add you to it. Since it's kind of an intimate space, we do it kind of usually by invite only. But we have a pretty big reading list, and we usually do it about a week after Constellation. So hope to see you out there tomorrow. And for those of you wondering, that's when you just see that Y and Tin House is dog. So thanks for coming out. Thank you.
So thank you again for coming. We'll be here on the 3rd Thursday of every month this year, except for July and December, because those are chaos months. Our next reading is Thursday, April 20th, featuring Genevieve de Guzman, who's actually here doing the wave. Jay Nasir and Chris Rose. So thanks, everybody. Please join us. Hang out.